Good afternoon. My name is Wendy O. Scott, and I'm an attorney at the State Controller's Office. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the Lunch and Learn program with information about becoming a probate referee. This program is hosted by State Controller Malia M. Cohen. Today's agenda. The topics will include: what do probate referees do? Who is eligible? And how do I apply? During the presentations, we will post links and additional information in the chat. If you have questions at all during the webinar, please type your questions into the chat. They will be answered live during the question and answer portion of the webinar. Thank you all so much for joining us. We have a detailed presentation about how to become a probate referee in California. Before we get started, we have a welcome video from Controller Cohen. Controller Cohen was sworn in 2023 and is serving as the 33rd controller for the state of California. She is very excited you are all able to be here. Let's hear from our controller, Malia M. Cohen.
Good afternoon. My name is Malia, and I am so glad you joined us today for this informative Lunch and Learn webinar on becoming a probate referee in California. Because probate referees perform an essential role for Californians, ensuring reliable, prompt, and low-cost appraisal of all types of estate assets. And as your state controller, I appoint this position, and here at the state controller's office, we are looking to increase our current pool of outstanding, diverse probate referees. Today, you will learn about what they do, who is eligible, how to apply, all the ins and outs of this process. There will be a live question and answer with an expert staff that will answer your questions. And as the Chief Fiscal Officer for the state of California, I understand the important role probate referees play in ensuring fiscal integrity across the entire state. And as a professional leader in your community, I appreciate your interest in strengthening our fiscal accountability statewide.
So let's get into the topics for today. What do probate referees do? Probate referees appraise all property in the state except for cash type items. At the receipt of the list of property to be appraised, this is taken from the personal representative, the referee is required to complete the appraisal within a specified timeline and return to the personal representative. There's other uses also for probate referees. In court and non-court matters, the referee can determine the fair market value to assist in liquidation matters. They can determine the fair market values for use in dissolution of property matters. They provide valuations for partial ownership interests for administrative purposes. They determine the fair market value in foreclosure actions, and they act as appointed referees, receivers, or special masters. And lastly, they provide valuations for use in mediations and arbitrations. For more than 125 years, estate representatives have enjoyed the benefits of a system that is unique to California. The California probate referee system offers independent, low-cost, prompt, and reliable appraisers of all types of assets, including businesses, securities, real estate, and personal property. Attorneys, professional fiduciaries, and private citizens have used this system to their advantage for decades. Our next topic is who is eligible. Prospective probate referees must pass a state-administered test on probate procedures and appraisal principles. There are certain entrance requirements for being able to take this test. One is a possession, and you only need one of these, but you would check every box that you have when you look at the application. The first is possession of a bachelor's degree in any field, at least 30 hours in appraisal valuation. Second, at least 2,000 hours of experience within the last 4 years appraising real or personal property. The next one is certification as an appraiser by the California Office of Real Estate Appraisers, the Appraisal Institute, or the American Society of Appraisers. Next, you could be an attorney with a minimum of 3 years as a member of the California State Bar, or you could be a certified public accountant with a minimum of 3 years as a licensed CPA in the state. The controller then appoints at least one probate referee per county based on the recommendations of a panel of lawyers and judges who interview qualified candidates. Probate referees complete 15 hours of continuing education each year to stay up to date on current appraisal methods. Lastly, how do I apply? Interested parties who meet the requirements I just stated should require an application. And information as to how to request this application is included on the California State Controller's website, as well as how to return the application and the exam fee. Additionally, the website also contains a certification candidate test. And the purpose of this information is to assist candidates to prepare for the exam. Preparation for the exam can increase your mastery of the test, and also the possibility of passing can be increased. It is always helpful in learning about an area such as this area to hear from someone who is actually performing the duty. We had hoped to also have someone from the controller's office participate in the panel, but unfortunately the panelists, due to illness, could not join us. But we are extremely fortunate to have a prominent practicing probate referee to give you some practical ideas on working in this area. Stephen J. Paul is our panelist. Mr. Paul was appointed as a California probate referee in 1989. He has been valuing property and trust estates, including residential and commercial real property, since 1989 for the Superior Court and arbitration and litigation matters, and for estate planning basis adjustments, and for gift and estate tax returns. Mr. Paul has valued over 4,000 properties since 1989. He holds a bachelor's degree in accounting from the University of Connecticut and a master's degree in business with an emphasis in real estate from the Haas School of Business at the University of California, Berkeley. Mr. Paul is a CPA, and he holds a California real estate broker's license. He has also taught real estate finance and valuation courses at the University of California, San Diego. He was the ethics chair for the Probate Referee Association for the previous 6 years, and is now the current president of the California Probate Referees Association. Welcome to the webinar, Mr. Paul.
Thank you. I don't know if everyone can see me. I see my name, but I will begin. I'm going to be speaking Wendy, thank you so much. That was very generous and kind. I appreciate it. So I've been a referee in San Diego County since 1989. And what I'm going to try to do in the next several minutes is touch on exactly the nuts and bolts of what we do and how we do it. Obviously, you're appointed by the state controller. Once you are appointed, you will then take the paperwork down to your county courthouse and be sworn in as a probate referee, at which time you become a subordinate officer of the Superior Court of your county. At that time, your name will be added into rotation with the other referees in your county. And let's say there's 7 of you or 6 of you in your county, you'll get every 7th case in rotation to value the assets. And it takes a little time once you're appointed, because once you're assigned to a case, it might take the estate, the attorney, several months to get it to you. But I can assure you, after several months, you'll be fully in rotation and regularly getting inventories and emails and calls from the estates. The estate, usually it's an attorney, will send you the inventory and appraisal. There's 2 forms. You don't need to write this down. They're called the DE 160 and a DE 161. Those are the judicial forms that they send you, that they fill out, they sign, and will include 2 attachments. One is attachment 1 that will list all the cash items of the estate, which we do not value. Those are self-valued by the estate. And attachment 2, which will list all the assets as required by probate code that we as probate referees would value for the estate. You have 60 days from the receipt of the inventory to complete your valuations and send the inventory and your bill back to the estate. There are cases that you might be missing information. You send a request, you're on 59 days, and you can't complete the value of something. You may then return the inventory back to the estate with a letter saying, I couldn't complete the inventory in the statutory 60 days because you didn't send me, let's say it's an apartment building, 8 units, they never sent you a rent roll. Without it, you can't value the property. Doesn't happen very often, because most of the time everybody is pushing to get the estate completed so the beneficiaries can get their share of the estate assets. They're not really looking to drag things on. So once you receive the inventory, you would open the case. We have procedures, which I'll touch on through the Probate Referee Association, that guide you through opening a case, creating logs to track your cases when they come in, and then when you mail them out. And we will, as referees, we have an association that all members are a part of. There's a little side note. So once you become a referee, you join the association, we'll assign a mentor who's a referee that has lots of experience, that will work with you to help you set up your office, provide guidance on how do you log your cases to meet the controller's guidelines, and help you get set up so it's an easy task for you to get used to the system. The fees are statutory at 1/10 of 1% of the value of the asset. So if you value a house or a condo at $500,000, your fee would be $500 plus expenses. That's usually map and photo and travel, and those can vary by county. They're typically approved by the court in that county. So in San Diego, I get $4 for photos, $4 for the map, the parcel map, and then our mileage chart is based on the sheriff's department from downtown to the particular zip code. So that can be $3, $10. If it's a 30, 40-mile ride, it might be $40. If maximum fee is $10,000 on an estate, the minimum fee is $75. Sometimes you might get a half interest in a house, so you value the half $500,000 house. The house is worth, the 50% is $250,000, so your fee would be $250 plus expenses. It's a pretty simple formula. You might ask, well, when do I get paid? You typically get paid within 60 days after the inventory is returned. We encourage referees to set up accounts receivable systems where after maybe 60 days, you call or email the attorney and say, I was just checking on the status of payment with the estate. Can you follow up? And 95% of the time, you get your payment pretty quickly. Protection is filing a request for special notice in court, but I'm not going to go into that now. Hopefully you never have to deal with that. And if you do, please call me or the vice president in your association area that will help you deal with that. But most of the time you do get paid. Type of assets you're going to be valuing, which is important. Most of the time it's a personal residence. It could be a house, a condominium, a mobile home with or without the land. That typically you'll see that. Investment property, it could be a duplex they own or their first house that they kept, that's a rental. Sometimes you do see multifamily. It could be 5-8 units, could be a little strip shopping center. It could be a Jack in the Box that they lease to Jack in the Box long-term. It could be a whole host of things. It could be vacant land out in the desert. So it could be a lot of different, a ground lease, a timeshare. We see a lot of timeshares. As a side note, most timeshares are not worth even half of what people paid for them. But once you become a referee, you'll learn how to value those too, and what databases to use. If the property is located in a county outside your county, let's say I'm a San Diego referee and I get a house in Palm Desert, in Riverside, I have to send what they call an ancillary, a request to that referee to value the asset for me, and they send it back, and they get a portion of the fee. So if it was a $500,000 property, they're going to get $150 based on 150,000, and then 0.6%. So there's a fixed formula on what they get as part of that out-of-county asset. As referees, we're only allowed to value assets in the county that we're sworn in. So there's a good system set up to use referees in the other counties for those assets. You'll see cars and trucks, toys such as three-wheelers, motorhomes, motorcycles, there's guidelines that can help you, as well as other referees with some expertise in these areas if you see something and need assistance. Securities, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, annuities, royalties, patents. Once I had a famous music composer that had lots of music royalties. So I valued the royalties. It was over 100 songs. So you'll see that. Operating businesses, which I won't go into detail because what you need and how you do it could vary depending on the type of business. But again, as you're a member of the association and as you do this over time, we have seminars that teach you about this, as well as there's referees like myself. Hey, Stephen, I have this liquor store on the corner here. What do we need? Can you help me value it? And if you're a new referee, I'm going to step up, and others will, and I'll actually do the work and walk through with you so you learn how to do it. And that way, the next time you get it, hopefully you'll be able to do it yourself. So you're not left on an island by yourself. There's a whole team of referees to help you. Sometimes we see jewelry like watches and diamonds. Unfortunately, many times, a lot of that, if it's not specifically in the will, family members take it. So what I want to note is we only value what's on the attachment to. We're not court investigators. So if they leave things off the inventory, it's not our responsibility as probate referees, nor is it the court's responsibility to hunt for hidden assets unless there's a dispute and the judge might require a investigation. But we are not investigators. We value what's on the inventory and nothing else. You could see coins or gold coins like Maple Leaf, Cougarans, and those are pretty straightforward to value. Once you become a referee, depending on what you do now for your profession, you'll need to subscribe to some databases. Some of them could be multiple listing service where you get your sales on property and vacant land in your county. It could be CoStar, which is it's an expensive database on commercial property. but there's some of us that do subscribe to it because we do a lot of commercial stuff in our trust world of a probate referee. So if you're just going to be, if you're not doing a lot of commercial stuff, it's probably not worth spending money on that, is to look to other referees that have it to assist you. And we're always happy to do that. There's car guides like JD Powers to help you value cars as of certain dates. There's a stock service. Usually you can price stock yourself through Yahoo or MSN. But then for things like bonds that you can't readily value yourself, there's an estate planning service out of Santa Barbara that almost every referee subscribes to. You can punch in the actual tracking number. We call them a QSIP on the bond, and it will produce the value for you. You print it out and you use that. Again, you hit something you don't know how to value, there's always people within our association that will help you navigate. And over time, you learn to see things on inventories, know what to ask. As you're a referee for a while, it gets easier and easier. So don't be intimidated that, oh my gosh, if I saw a watch, how am I going to value that? Or a diamond ring or an 8-unit apartment building, I'm not quite sure. Yes, you'll learn. You have resources within the association to help you. As a side note, our Probate Referee Association, every individual is a member of it. We provide 2 semi-annual conferences, which are really important. You get your 15 hours of continuing education, which is approved by the controller in that. And you get to meet other referees, share stories, build relationships with those other referees, both in your county and other counties, that make it, I think it's important, and makes us stronger and better at what we do. Dues are pretty minor. Your first year, you don't pay any dues. And then it's based on revenue as a small percentage. Like my dues this year were $400. So it's not a big number, but we provide a lot of help. We have a website that I would, if you're interested to know more about us and the referee system, even in more detail, go to www.probatereferees.net, N-E-T. So www.probatereferees.net, all one word. And on there, it talks about what we do. There is something called the guide, the Probate Referee Guide. There's a link on it, and that goes to how to complete forms. And it's really for the public, for the estate, for the administrators, the executors. But to familiar yourself to be a referee, that could be very helpful to read that and get to know more about what we do. The court and the estate are relying on everything that we value. The judges make decisions based on the values that we provide, both for estates, guardianships, conservatorships. Especially on guardianships and conservatorships, the judge is relying on these values to determine the available assets to care for somebody. So our job is quite important. I want to note that we're independent. We're not employees of the state of California or the court. Although we are subordinate officers of the court, we are independent contractors that abide by the state controller's guidelines and the probate code. So you can't do this as a corporation, as an individual. So from a tax standpoint, you'd be filing as basically a Schedule C for a sole proprietor business. When you set up your office, you'll have to have a phone line that identifies you as a referee. If you're an attorney or a realtor, you may use the same line, but make sure you say, hi, you've reached Stephen Paul, California probate referee and realtor. Leave a message. In these days and times, it's not to spend an extra $30 a month on another phone line doesn't seem to make sense. As long as you identify yourself as a referee, you'll also have your email address, because it's evolved. We now receive inventories by email and mail. So I'm available at any time to talk to people if they say, well, if you have any questions about being a referee, since I've been one a long time, and the president of the association, I'm happy to chat with you. There's no question that is silly or not a good question. Every question's a good question. So they'll have my email on here, but I'll also give you my office number if you want to write that down. It's 619-269-7716, 619-269-7716. And again, if you have questions, we'd love to hear from you. I can tell you after doing this, it's not a full-time job, but it's been very rewarding. At the end of the day, helping families and the court. Yes, you make some money off of it, but I'll leave you with this example. I had a watch once, and it was a famous manufacturer, Piaget, 1945 watch. The family said, oh, it doesn't work. It was in grandpa's underwear drawer. He died at 95. No, they just found it. It's probably been in there for 50 years. And they said, oh, it's probably worth $400. We're going to give it to our grandson. And I said, oh, hold on. I'm not an expert, but because of our training as referees and our education, I said, take it to an expert watchmaker and get it valued. Play it forward 6 months. It sold at a watch auction for $60,000. So there we helped the family. We raised the flag and protected them, and everyone was better off for that. So that's my presentation. I'm here for questions as needed.
Thank you so much, Mr. Paul. You've been so informative, and thank you for staying for the question and answer portion, which we are now going into. We've received several questions from participants today from the registration form and during this live event. Matthew, can you please read our first question?
Absolutely. So one of our first questions is, can you please review the eligibility requirements again?
Okay, instead of going through every single one, I think the ones that have to do with category of professions are attorney with a minimum of 3 years as a member of the California State Bar, and the certified public accountant with a minimum of 3 years as a licensed CPA. All of the requirements and the way that the interest requirements work, you have to have at least one. If you go to the state controller's website and you push application, then they will come up specifically so you can read them in their entirety. Mr. Paul, do you have anything else to add to that question?
No, as other professionals, whether you might be in different industries, I think I saw somebody, and it might be a question down the road, is, well, where do I get my 30 hours of education for appraisal? If you go online, there's the Board of Realtors in your counties could have classes on how to appraise apartments, how to appraise residential property. Also the appraisal institutes, if you Google it, if you're just starting out, there's courses you can take. Obviously you have to pay for them, but those courses on both residential and commercial property would be great because it will prepare you for the exam. And so I think that could be a very good source for people that already aren't in what I would call the appraisal world.
Okay, Matthew, do we have, could you go to another question?
Yes, and I think this one is directed at Mr. Paul. Do real estate agents qualify to be a probate referee? And if so, can you talk a little bit more about their background?
Yes, they can, as long as they have the bachelor's degree as the baseline, and then they'll need 30 hours, I believe. And Wendy, correct me if I'm wrong, 30 hours of the education in the appraisal area, which as a realtor should be easy to take via the various courses that the National Association of Realtors and your local association and the California Realtors Association offer. So I think you would be in a good position And you might have already had those courses, but it's probably worth, if you don't do that every day, is take some review courses on the appraisal of real estate, so you're up to snuff on it.
And if you could, just because it segues into this question, you touched on it a little bit. Where would or where should a participant go to receive the 30 hours of training? Hypothetically, if they have a degree held in IT or a similar field, would that background suffice? Or does the training need to be tacked on top of that?
I believe the 30 hours needs to be, I mean, you have your baseline bachelor's degree, but after that, you need to have the hours in education of being an appraiser. Am I right, Wendy? I think you don't need 1,500 hours of appraisal experience on top of the education, I don't think. I haven't looked at it in a while.
For some questions that we may not have time to get to, or if we may want to explore further, we can definitely do a little bit more research and submit a written response to all the participants here today via email. But I think that was a good answer, Mr. Paul. But if we want to just double check on that, we'll definitely get back to all the participants. But I'll go ahead and go to another question. Are referees required to follow the same criteria as property appraisers follow in their valuation of real property?
The probate referees are not required to follow USAP on our evaluations. Our guidelines on how we value, let's say, a house is in the controller's standards for referees, as well as in a guidebook that we call a blue book that referees use. The quick thing is you need to drive by the property. If requested, you go inside. You have to do your valuation, minimum 3 comparable sales, parcel map. You have to have your adjustments from the sales comps to arrive at a value of the property. So similar, but it is not, we're not doing bank appraisals, so it's not required to follow USAP, just the controller standards, which have a lot of boxes to check when you value a property.
I know you touched on the probate referees website a little bit earlier, but a participant has asked, is there a good source to help prepare for the exam other than the practice exam on the controller's website?
Based on my knowledge, no, that's the best place to go. It gives a breakdown on the controller's website, not just sample exams, but the type of questions, the categories on appraisal. Anybody wanting to take the exam after they review that, if you desire, call me and ask me. I'm happy to talk to you as what is this category? Can you give me some guidance? And maybe I could laser focus a little more on where you can go to educate yourself on that section. But I think the control, that's all that's really out there at this point. There's no study guidebooks that have been developed to help people over the years. It's really been the sample tests that will help you, and you go through those and you'll see where your weaknesses are.
Another question is, do you know what is the deadline to submit the application?
I don't know that. That's a state controller question in terms of when you would file, send in your application. I believe the exam is in March. So I would encourage you, if you're interested, to try in the next month, get through the education or get those 30 hours if you need it, take some courses and submit your application. It's always sooner than later. I don't know what the exact cutoff date is, but if you're interested, if you check all the boxes, do it next week, submit it, right?
Yes, we will have information about the deadline and the application process on the website. So continue to check the website to get the latest information on that.
All right, I do have a few more questions. Actually, you guys are submitting a lot of questions, so I'll try to get through as many as possible. But one of our participants asked, how is workload determined? Do you set your own hours? I know you kind of talked about it's not a full-time job, Mr. Paul, but yes, how is one's work week kind of determined?
Actually, you can see me now. Uh, so it's really based on caseload. You can have a week where you have 1 or 2 cases, and so there's not a lot to do, or all of a sudden you get 10 cases in 1 week. It's an inconsistent workflow. I can tell you in San Diego, I averaged between 60 and 70 cases every 6 months. So about 10 maybe 10 cases a month, 12 cases a month. Timeline is technically we have to have an office that's open 5 days a week. Many referees, because of the cost of running a full office outside, some people do home offices, and that's acceptable. I find if I have my business line, if I'm not here, text me the message and then I can call people back. So, you know, if you have a full-time job and you're doing this on the side, you know, we encourage you really, if you get calls on Monday, you know, Tuesday or Wednesday, find a little time to call people back and work on, you know, your cases. So some people are attorneys working full-time or CPAs, and, you know, sometimes they'll work the weekends on getting their inventories done and driving and looking at their properties. So you learn to fit it into the flow with your other career and your life with family and other obligations. I've never heard a referee have an issue with it. You kind of learn each month, and the flow is as I could tell you, it's not going to overwhelm you where it's like, oh my gosh, I'm working 90 hours a week on this. So.
Another question is, does a person with a JD need to have 30 hours if they are not licensed?
I think we probably need to, I'm not sure. So I think after this, hopefully the state controller, and I'm happy to work on that, is go through the qualifications and double check everything, because the worst thing I want to do is give someone information that's not accurate.
Sorry, I'm just scanning through. I feel like we've covered a lot of the questions. I think I found one. Do you have to have a business license to operate?
I reside in the city of San Diego, so I do have a business license. I think it depends on the municipality you're operating out of. I know San Diego takes business licensing, even for small businesses and sole proprietors, seriously. So I think in San Diego, the fee is $38. So I have a business license and I renew it every year for a home office. It's a very low cost thing. And I do it because the city of San Diego requires it.
And if you haven't already touched on this, and I apologize, it's rapid fire questions, but what is the typical time frame spent per evaluation?
If I have let's say a house in central San Diego, I have to drive and go by it. So let's say that's a 20-minute ride. So it's an hour to look at the property. And typically, once you get good at this, probably another half hour to an hour doing your analysis and finishing it up. I think it gets faster as time goes by, because you become better at, when you do your search for comparable sales, like anything else in life, you do something more and more, it gets easier. You're more efficient, you're smarter. So, on a typical house for me, maybe I spend an hour and a half if it's a local. If I have to drive to northern San Diego County to Oceanside, probably add another hour to that. So it's not too bad, and it gets easier every time you do another appraisal. It gets easier and easier.
And then could you let us know as well, how much does it cost to take the exam?
Yeah, that's probably an administrative question that you're gonna have to look at the website, because when you apply for the exam, they will tell you the price, and I don't know it offhand, but it will be listed. A lot of the technical administrative questions are being reviewed, so that's why we're encouraging you to continue to look at the website for the most accurate and up-to-date information.
And earlier it was discussed about the trainings or the hours. How do you enroll in courses if you have a bachelor's degree?
Are you talking about for the 30 hours of education?
I would say yes, it's not clearly defined.
Yeah, I think and again, I don't want to give the wrong answer, but I think if you went to the Appraisal Institute, I think even though you're not a member, but you're thinking of being an appraiser, I think you can take appraisal courses there. You just pay the fee. Most of them are online. Many of them are recorded classes that you take, and then you take an exam to get your certificate of hours. So I would think that would be one of the easier approaches. If you're a realtor, go through your board of realtors. They do classes, and I know National Association and other associations, they do classes on how to value income property, valuing mobile homes. So I think there's a lot of resources. If you Google appraisal class for residential property, I think you'll find several sources. I know Tuesday Morning, which offers a lot of classes. There's several. I use them for my renewal of my broker's license. They have a bunch of courses that you can take. And so I think there's a lot of resources that can help you get those hours in.
Another question we have is there a set fee that an appraiser receives per case?
The fees are set by state law. It's 1/10 of 1% of the property value. So as I mentioned, if it's a $500,000 house, you get $500 plus expenses, which vary by county, but typically they're like $15, $20 per property in San Diego. If it's $1 million house, you would get $1,000 fee plus expenses. If it's a quarter interest in a $4 million property, you're not going to get $4,000 because the person's interest is just a 1/4, so their value would be $1 million. So you get $1,000 plus the expenses. Typically, though, as I mentioned, because many people have living trust, most of what goes through probate, although there's quite a bit, is really a house, a car, maybe some stock and bonds, and some jewelry. So most of the time you're not going to see crazy stuff. But again, if you do, or you get lucky, I had an estate just recently that was $1 billion. The individual never had a trust or a will. It was a lot of work, and it took many months, but I bet that was probably the largest estate through California in many, many years, because most people with that wealth typically will have some estate planning. So.
And then earlier, Mr. Paul, you had mentioned a conference. Is there one upcoming?
We just had a conference at the end of beginning of December. Our next conference is in May. It's going to be in Sacramento. However, at the point where there's new referees appointed, the association will put on a conference as president, it would probably be in LA or the Bay Area, so it's easy to access. And we would do an in-person training, spend a day going through all the different information a referee needs to get started, get them assigned to a mentor. And we'd probably, if there's several or quite a few new referees, we'll probably do 2 or 3 seminars, maybe one in person, a couple by Zoom. So new referees, because you'll generate questions and it'll be a perfect venue to do that. So we're there to help. You're not, again, you're not out by yourself. So if the controller appointed people and it's after the next convention, we're gonna set up a conference for all the new referees to get together, and myself and some of our other referees that have a lot of experience will come in and provide some great education to get you started.
Okay, we have a question that is specifically for you, Mr. Paul. We have a participant that recently passed the probate exam. Once passed, do they wait to hear back if they're appointed? Or what's the process? Actually, this also might be for Wendy as well.
I think it's for Wendy. We're not every controller. There's a process within the office. You pass the exam, so I couldn't really address what happens after you pass the exam and submit your application. That's a process that the controller.
Yeah, I can say that the probate applications, once they're submitted to the controller's office, they're good for 5 years. So there's no need to reapply if you submitted an application earlier this year. But again, this is a type of administration question that we're going to update and review and have on the website.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and ask one more question, and I'm going to combine it with a couple of participants. And then all the other remaining questions and ones that we wanted to do a little bit more research on, we'll submit those in writing. But this question is, how many referees is the controller's office, I guess, looking to appoint? In addition, is there a specific area or county in which you are looking to get probate referees appointed in?
Again, that's an administrative question. I think that one of the reasons we're doing this webinar is we wanted to get a wide range of people interested in applying, but I don't think that there's been any particular number that has been established. But again, that's something we're looking into, and we're hopeful that the information that we're giving today and that will be on the website in this form of the recording will encourage people to give the controller a wide range of applicants for her to choose from. Because this isn't a well-known area, so that's what we're hoping to dissipate today to make it much more, people can know what this is and be interested in applying.
No, but we'll go ahead and share that when the recording becomes finalized. So we'll send out the recording, the additional questions that we'll expand upon, and that'll be it. And then if you do have any follow-up questions, you can email the controller's office as well as Paul here, or Mr. Stephen Paul, my apologies. So we do have their contact information displayed. If you do have any administrative-based questions or anything related to the controller's office, you can contact Mr. Rick Shavaro. And if you have anything that's related to the Probate Referees Association or anything that Mr. Stephen Paul has discussed today, you can email him there. And he has also dropped his phone number earlier as well.
So I want to thank Mr. Paul. Your expertise has been wonderful, and we definitely needed it today. The role of the probate referee is a vital component. So again, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Please pass the word that the controller's office wants to have a very wide range of applicants because this is such an important area. So she definitely wants people to apply, and hopefully this has helped. So I hope you have learned what probate referees do and how essential they are to our state of California. So thank you again, and I hope and wish you a wonderful afternoon.